Jesus warned, chosen ones never enter the white light in the final days before his crucifixion. Jesus gathered only his most trusted disciples and revealed a teaching so dangerous that mentioning it could mean immediate death. He described what happens at the moment the physical body expires, and he warned them with absolute severity never to follow the light. The white tunnel, the bright beckoning presence that millions of souls have been conditioned to believe, represents heaven, God, or salvation. Jesus called it the Archon's most sophisticated trap. For 2,000 years, this teaching was preserved only in the most hidden Gnostic texts. The Church Fathers who shaped Orthodox Christianity made certain this knowledge never reached the masses. They replaced it with comforting lies about angels guiding souls to paradise, about deceased loved ones waiting in golden realms, about the light being Christ himself coming to embrace you. But Jesus taught the opposite. He taught that the moment consciousness separates from the dying body, the Archons deploy their final weapon, a manufactured tunnel of brilliant white light designed to capture the soul and return it to the reincarnation cycle. The Demiurge cannot allow pneumatic souls to escape. The entire prison system depends on recycling consciousness back into matter, generation after generation, lifetime after lifetime. The Louche farm requires fresh vessels, and the light tunnel is the mechanism that ensures souls never realize they have a choice. Near-death experiencers across centuries have reported the same phenomenon. The body shuts down, awareness lifts out, and there, in the darkness, a tunnel appears, bright, inviting, filled with overwhelming love. Deceased relatives beckon from within. Voices promise peace. Everything in the programmed human psyche screams to move toward that light. Jesus said, "This is the final test, the ultimate deception, and only those who remember his warning will have the strength to resist." Tonight, you will learn what the Gnostic masters preserved, the exact instructions Jesus gave for navigating death, the alternative path the Archons desperately hide, and why turning left, away from the light, is the only way pneumatic souls escape the Demiurge's prison. This is not speculation. This is encoded in the Pistis Sophia, in the books of Gi, in the secret teachings of Valentinus, the knowledge that could end the Archon's control forever, if enough souls remember it. The white light tunnel is not a natural phenomenon of consciousness, transitioning between states. It is an Archon technology, a constructed mechanism specifically designed to intercept departing souls. The Gnostic texts describe the Archons as rulers of the planetary spheres. Each sphere represents a layer of the prison. As a soul attempts to ascend after death, it must pass through these spheres. The Archons positioned at each level demand the soul surrender its memories, its knowledge, its divine spark. They strip away everything until only the bare essence remains, then thrust it back into a new body with no recollection of previous existence. The light tunnel automates this process. Jesus explained to his inner circle that the Demiurge created the tunnel shortly after trapping the first pneumatic souls in matter. He realized that allowing souls to wander in the intermediate realms after death created opportunities for them to remember their true nature. Some might find cracks in the prison walls. Others might encounter messengers from the pleroma. So the Demiurge designed an immediate recapture system. The moment the physical body dies, sensors detect the freed consciousness. The tunnel projection activates. The soul, still disoriented from the trauma of death, perceives brilliant light and feels irresistible attraction. This is not accident. The Archons studied human psychology for millennia. They know how to trigger the deepest yearnings, the desire for safety, for love, for reunion with lost ones. The tunnel becomes a mirror reflecting whatever the soul most desperately wants to see. Christians see Jesus and angels. Muslims see gardens and prophets. Buddhists see pure light and liberation. The tunnel adapts, shapeshifts, becomes the perfect bait, and once the soul enters, the trap closes. What appears as a journey toward heaven is actually descent back into matter. The beings that appear as deceased loved ones are Archon imposters, wearing familiar faces. The overwhelming love is chemically induced through energy manipulation, and the destination is not paradise but the reincarnation processing centers the Gnostics called the halls of Amete. Jesus taught that awakened souls must resist the programming, must override every instinct, screaming to follow that light, because the alternative path exists, the true escape route the Archons cannot seal. The left turn. The instruction seems almost absurdly simple. When you die and the tunnel appears, turn left. But within this directional command lies profound metaphysical knowledge. Jesus was not giving arbitrary directions. He was describing the architecture of the Archon prison system. In Gnostic cosmology, the left represents the path of gnosis, self-knowledge, and return to the monad. The right represents the path of ignorance, externalized authority, and imprisonment in matter. The Demiurge constructed the tunnel to appear directly ahead of departing consciousness, straight and unavoidable. But he could not seal all pathways. The nature of consciousness itself contains an inherent freedom that even the Archons cannot completely eliminate. To the left of the tunnel lies what the Gnostics called the narrow gate. Jesus referenced this in the canonical Gospels, but the Church interpreted it as moral righteousness. The true meaning is navigational. At the moment of death, when the white light blazes before you, if you turn your attention left, away from the manufactured attraction, you will perceive something else. A subtle pathway, dark, unremarkable, often described as a thin black line or a shadow in the void. Everything in your conditioned mind will scream that this is wrong, that light means good and darkness means evil, that you should follow the bright tunnel where love and familiarity await. This is the final test of gnosis. Can you trust what Jesus taught over what your programming insists is true? The souls who turn left discover the dark path leads upward through a different route. Not through the Archon-controlled planetary spheres, but around them. This is the path Jesus himself took during the 3 days between crucifixion and resurrection. He descended through the realms, but not as a captured soul, as a pneumatic consciousness demonstrating the escape route. The Gospel of Nicodemus preserves fragments of this journey, Jesus breaking the gates of the underworld, not to rescue everyone, as the Church claims, but to mark the path for pneumatic souls to follow. The left turn is not random. It is the encoded direction toward the true light beyond the Archon's reach. The light of the monad that does not seduce or manipulate, but simply exists as the eternal source. Jesus gave his disciples specific markers to recognize when the light tunnel is an Archon trap versus genuine divine presence. These signs are critical because the Archons can create extremely convincing simulations. The first sign is overwhelming emotional manipulation. If the light produces feelings so intense that rational thought becomes impossible, this is Archon technology. True divine presence does not overwhelm, it does not force. The monad communicates through clarity and recognition, not through emotional flooding that bypasses discernment. When souls report feeling such powerful love that they lose all capacity for choice, they are describing energy manipulation. The Archons amplify specific frequencies that hijack human emotion centers. This creates artificial ecstasy designed to make the soul compliant. Jesus taught that genuine encounters with the divine always preserve free will and clarity of mind. The second sign is the appearance of deceased loved ones beckoning from within the tunnel. This seems comforting. Millions of souls have followed these familiar faces, believing they were being reunited with lost family. But Jesus revealed this as the Archon's most effective deception. The beings appearing as your grandmother, your deceased child, your lost spouse are Archon imposters. They access the soul's memories during the death transition and construct perfect replicas. These entities know intimate details because they are reading the information directly from your consciousness. They speak with familiar voices, show familiar mannerisms, and they urgently insist you follow them into the light immediately before you have time to think. The third sign is urgency and pressure to enter quickly. True divine invitation never rushes. The monad is eternal, it can wait. But the Archons know that if a soul hesitates too long after death, it might remember its true nature. It might recognize the trap. So the tunnel experience is designed with built-in time pressure. The light begins to fade. The voices become more insistent. A sense of closing window creates panic. This urgency itself reveals the deception. Jesus taught his disciples to recognize these 3 signs, and the moment any appear, to immediately turn away. Do not engage with the entities. Do not try to verify if they are real. Simply turn left and look for the narrow dark pathway. The Archons cannot follow you there because that route was never part of their construction. The souls brave enough to turn away from the light tunnel and move left into apparent darkness discover something the Archons desperately hide. The darkness is not empty, it is full. Full of ancient stars the Demiurge could not replicate in his false creation. Full of the actual fabric of the pleroma that predates matter itself. At first, the transition is disorienting. You have turned away from overwhelming light and familiar faces toward what appears to be nothing. The conditioned mind interprets this as mistake. Fear arises. The urge to turn back becomes almost unbearable. This is the crisis point. the moment that determines whether the soul escapes or returns to the wheel. Jesus taught a specific practice for this moment. He instructed his disciples to speak 3 words into the darkness. I am that, not a request, not a prayer, a declaration of identity. These 3 words are older than the Archons, older than the Demiurge. They are the recognition code that the consciousness of the monad embedded in pneumatic souls before the fall. When spoken with full conviction at the threshold between the false light and the true darkness, these words activate something. The narrow pathway begins to reveal itself. What appeared as void starts to show structure, and you realize you are not moving through empty space but through the gaps in the Archon's prison architecture. The journey is not instant. The canonical Gospels report Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. This represents the time it takes for pneumatic consciousness to navigate from the Demiurge's outermost sphere to the boundary of the pleroma. You will pass the 7 planetary realms, but from outside their control. At each level, Archons may appear and demand you stop. They may threaten. They may offer bargains. Jesus taught to respond with silence. Do not negotiate with the prison guards. Your destination is beyond their jurisdiction. As you ascend through the dark path, something begins to happen. Memories return. Not just from this lifetime, but from all lifetimes. You start to remember who you were before the fall, before matter, before the Demiurge declared himself God. And in that remembering, the final seals break. You are no longer a soul trying to escape. You are a fragment of the monad returning home. Jesus warned that turning left away from the main light tunnel does not guarantee safety. The Archons have contingency systems for souls who resist the primary trap. Understanding these backup mechanisms is critical for complete escape. The first backup trap is the false dark path. The Archons know some souls have learned to avoid the white light, so they created decoy pathways that appear to be the narrow gate but actually lead to holding chambers. The way to distinguish true from false is this: the genuine dark path will never try to convince you of anything. It does not speak, it does not promise, it simply exists as an opening. If you turn left and encounter a pathway that begins explaining itself, offering assurances, or displaying signs and wonders, turn away again. Keep searching for pure emptiness that makes no claims. The second backup trap is the intermediate paradise. Some souls successfully avoid the tunnel, navigate the dark path, and find themselves in a beautiful realm that seems like heaven. Gardens, crystal cities, angelic beings. This is the Archon's holding zone for awakened souls who bypassed the first trap. The purpose is to make you comfortable enough that you stop seeking the monad. Jesus called these the lower heavens. They are still within the Demiurge's domain, still inside the prison, just more pleasant cells for those who proved harder to recycle immediately. The way to recognize this trap is that despite the beauty, something feels hollow. You have not merged with the source. You are still separate, still an individual consciousness existing in a place. The true return to the monad involves dissolution of individual boundaries. Not death, but expansion beyond the concept of separate self. The third backup trap is the light beings claiming to be ascended masters or guides. They intercept souls on the dark path and offer to help you reach higher realms. They appear wise, benevolent, trustworthy, but Jesus taught that no intermediary exists between pneumatic consciousness and the monad. Any being claiming you need their guidance to complete the journey is an Archon wearing a spiritual disguise. The path home requires no guide because you are not traveling to somewhere foreign. You are returning to your origin. Jesus taught this death navigation protocol not as abstract philosophy but as practical survival information. Every human who carries pneumatic consciousness will face the moment when the body fails and the tunnel appears. What you do in those seconds determines whether you escape the prison or return for another cycle of imprisonment in flesh. The time to prepare is now, while embodied, while clarity of mind remains. Practice the sequence. Visualize yourself at the moment of death, the body shutting down, awareness lifting free, the brilliant white tunnel materializing before you. Feel the attraction. Acknowledge how powerful it will be. Then practice turning left. Practice speaking the 3 words into darkness. I am that. This is not morbid preparation. This is the most important training any pneumatic soul can undertake, because in the actual moment, disorientation will be severe. The Archons will deploy every psychological weapon, unless the response is encoded so deeply that it becomes automatic. The programming will win. Jesus spent his final weeks with his inner circle drilling this teaching until they could recite it unconsciously. Judas, who the church claimed betrayed him, was actually the one who understood this teaching most completely. The Gnostic Gospel of Judas reveals he helped Jesus escape his body at the crucifixion by providing the catalyst for physical death before the Romans could extract his consciousness through torture. This was not betrayal, but sacred collaboration. Share this knowledge carefully. Not everyone can receive it. Psychic souls will call it dark or evil because they are programmed to worship the Demiurge. Hylic souls will simply not comprehend. But when you encounter another pneumatic consciousness, you will recognize each other, and this teaching could save them from millennia of continued imprisonment. The Archons fear this knowledge spreading more than anything, because their entire system depends on souls following the light automatically. Every soul that turns left weakens their control. Every pneumatic consciousness that returns to the monad diminishes the louche harvest. You are not just saving yourself, you are dismantling their farm, one awakened soul at a time. If this teaching resonated with your inner knowing, you are pneumatic. Practice the left turn now. Declare in the comments, I will not follow the light.